Hey everyone, hope you guys are doing well. It's so nice to do the live stream again. Sorry that I'm a little bit late, but if I'm not late, I guess it's not an FPL Fran stream. But yeah, unfortunately, just pretty tough work week. Hope you guys are doing well. I've obviously decided to make my transfers. I'm not on a kind of free hit. I'm just kind of on rolling transfers, and unfortunately, with João Pedro, I've taken a -4 as well, as anyone has seen, but I have changed sort of my transfers against the team selection. I just ultimately thought that Welbeck and Raul's minutes felt a little bit suspicious. Not suspicious in the sense that I think they're bad for the run up, right? Like Welbeck should be playing 90 minutes a match, really up until the end of the season. But still, game week 37-38 is really bad for Brighton. For Raul, I do think his minutes are a little bit poor. Of course, Muniz seems like he could actually be out for the season as well. And that's going to just mean that Raul plays minutes. But just looking at his minutes within the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 games, it just did feel like the match log wasn't good enough for Raul. And I just didn't really feel like I could back that. So I've gone instead for an Evan Nilsson path. Now, I think in hindsight, if I could have still gone for the triple Bournemouth move, I think I would have done that. But I haven't been able to. Yeah, so morning to everyone in the chat. Jason, start Sessegnon or Aït-Nouri for long term. I think Aït-Nouri, I mean, if the question is long term, I think it has to be Aït-Nouri. And there's also a reason why I've gone Aït-Nouri myself. I just think he'll play every single match. I do think Harry Wilson's a significant enough threat for, Sessegnon to not be a good long term transfer. So that's where I'm kind of at with that. By the way, Fahad, Al-Shadoki, I hope that's how I pronounce your name. Thank you so much for joining as a manager of the channel. Appreciate it a lot, and welcome aboard. Morning Tom, morning Kieran, morning Ben. What are the best players to chase rank on free hit? You know what? Actually, a very good and very astute point made by Johnny Curry on Blue Sky, my friend FPL Spaceman. He basically mentioned that actually on a free hit, if you're chasing, if you try to stack up on certain things, so for example double or triple defense of a certain team, it's probably better than just purely going for low ownership players. The reason why I say this is if you look at, let's say, I don't know, maybe like the core free hit draft. I think the core free hit draft, if I was to mock it up on my team here, it's probably not Pope, right? I think a core free hit draft right now looks like maybe Sanchez, something like that. It's probably Ryan Aït-Nouri, maybe Sessegnon, maybe Trent. Yeah, that could be like a triple up that I see quite often. Forget Trippier, forget Nico Williams, forget Mbumo, forget Eze, forget Evan Nilsson. So a lot of people are going for Cunha, probably going for Raul as well. In the midfield, people are actually going for Luis Diaz and Barnes. And to be honest, maybe they're just getting a Newcastle defender as well, right? So let's say Livramento. So I think this is kind of a core draft that a lot of people are going for. And then, Kluivert's on the bench. What the point that he made was that, the high-owned players, I think we can tell from this sort of list, is Salah. So, I mean, Salah's not going to change because he's just that good. Same with Isak. So, forget about those two. Palmer as well, potentially, but I think his ownership is quite low, so that's quite nice. Hard to avoid. And I think Luis Diaz is, the first instance of stacking you have. So, 2 attackers. With the Wolves situation, it's Cunha, you don't really have a stack, right? You're kind of just going for a defender. Yes, of course, I know he's an attacking defender, but he's not Sessegnon. If Sessegnon was to start. So I think you kind of have maybe a Fulham stack here, you kind of have a soft Newcastle stack, and that's it. But a lot of it's the kind of highly owned stacks. In defense, we don't actually have a double up here or a triple up. And his sort of general point was if you go against the grain a little bit, you know that Ryan Nuri is maybe 90% owned. Now, I've gone Ryan Nuri, but simply because I think it was the safest transfer to make to keep my team robust. But I think in the case of the free hitter, you're not going for a robust team, right? You're just going for, in theory, maximum points. But the idea is, because the outcomes of defenders are highly correlated, if you stack defenders and you know that everyone's going Barnes, maybe you drop Barnes potentially. Maybe you bring Clever back into the draft. And then suddenly you go for something like, who knows, maybe a Trippier as well, right? So you go double Newcastle defense because Isak's ownership doesn't matter. And then you maybe even drop Eitner, and that's obviously controversial, but we'll discuss this later. This is the concept of if you really want to be chasing. Maybe you drop Trent as well. Maybe you actually play Kukureya. Maybe you're scared of Sessegnon's minutes, so you just drop him. So this is your attacking lineup. Somehow you've then moved into double Chelsea, double Newcastle, got double or full attack. And then maybe there's also questions on Cunha as well. Like, you could go, in theory, for someone else, right? From an ownership perspective. But that's the interesting thing, I think, that he sort of raised. I have to say, though, that I'd probably still go Cunha. I quite like the double defense stack. I still really like Barnes. And this is obviously for people who aren't chasing, right? If you're not chasing, I think this is the strongest draft possible. One of Trippier, Livramento is fine. I own Trippier. I'm not actually that high on Trippier. I actually don't mind if people want to go Livramento. If you want to close out the draft with a really highly owned Ryan Nuri, I think this is a very solid draft, right? An example of a very solid draft, because you've got the triple Newcastle that you want, you've got double Liverpool with guaranteed minutes. You've got a good first bench. Raul's probably the best striker outside of Isak, I would say, within this week, and just given the minutes that he's going to play. And then you still have a double Chelsea stack. This is the kind of draft that I quite like, but that's just my perspective. So let's just jump back into the stream chat, because I've waffled on a bit. 200 of you guys are here. Thank you guys so much. I do apologize for not being able to stream the last 2 weeks, but it's a pleasure to see you guys around. Robert TG6, what do you think about Strand Larson over Cunha? He could potentially get a rest. So reading into the embargoed press conference, it does seem like that Cunha is most likely going to start. I don't think that Pereira really put in enough seeds of doubt for me to think that Cunha is going to be benched. Excuse me, sorry. And I think running Strand Larsen's probably not the one. Like, I'd rather just go Raul in that case, or Welbeck in that case. Someone who's actually on penalties anyways, and someone who's actually just going to play good minutes anyways. As opposed to sort of banking on a late Cunha sort of benching. But I think it's okay to not have Cunha in the free hit. I think it's totally fine. La Luna, hi Fran, do you have a free hit draft? Yeah, I kind of walked through that, so hopefully that worked out for yourself. Mo M, good morning to yourself. Damon says, hi Fran, anything about Castagna? Still have him? Should I -4 him out of my team? So I've not been following anything about Castagna. Is there some sort of injury that I've missed out in terms of Castagna? Oh, Tete's back, right? Yeah, Tete's back. So I think I think Castagna's probably not going to continue playing. Just given that, I think the kind of order of play previously was always that Tete was playing over Castagna. So would I use my triple captain this week on Salah? No, I wouldn't. I would just wait till game week 36, Hopefully chance that. And Mbeumo or Raul to start on a free hit? I'd probably go Raul. Please hit the button, guys, to support the channel. Thank you so much as a plan. I hope you're doing well. Damon, oh right, yeah, it's true. I am not Oscar. Hey Gray, love the content. I'm on wildcard. Should Mbeumo be on your team? Yes, Mbeumo should be on the wildcard team, 100%. I mean, let's just have a look at it, right? Like, I think first of all, let's just look at the midfielders as a whole. Like, I think if we say that this is like a good pool of midfielders to look from, Mbeumo's the second best midfielder in the game. He's also got some of the best fixtures in the game. He's got United, a rest. This is going to be a rotated United. Then he's got Ipswich. Then he's got Fulham at home. Then he's got Wolves. Like, the fixtures don't really get much better. Even the Nottingham Forest match, I actually think looks really good because, like, you just know that there's going to be a bit of rest for this Nottingham Forest team coming out of the FA Cup. And Mbeumo's already just a rock solid pick. So yeah, he absolutely should be on the wild card. And I mean, I'm kind of showing you, I guess, what transfers I would have made if I was going on a wild card, right? Because I've gone for more Bournemouth players, and Bumo as well. I don't think Nuri necessarily has to be on the wild card. It's just in my condition, I had to take a -4 this week to get towards 11 because I still think that going for some of the players like Ryan Nuri is worth it from that perspective. So that's what I've done. And also because, I mean, he's the kind of, or Saliba was the cash cow so that I could go Evan Nilsson, which I really wanted to do, and Mbuma, which I really wanted to do. And I think a bit of a differential that I have is I already own Kluivert compared to everyone else. A lot of people who don't own free it or don't have free at 34 would have made moves towards going for Kluivert, for example. It's interesting too because I think Luis Diaz could fit on a wildcard draft. I'm not quite sure if I would do that. Palmer also just has mediocre fixtures, so you know, like he's not that interesting to me. If I was wildcarding, I might actually, you know, give Palmer a pass. Having said, Liverpool and kind of Arsenal do have some tougher games, but you know, I'd probably still chance Luis Diaz on the wild card. You know, I wouldn't really be touching Arsenal on the bench. I'd probably have, you know, quite a City type bench, if that helps. A few Bournemouth players for sure. I'd probably actually go triple up on Bournemouth. Like I'd actually consider going Kepa, for example, and then guaranteeing yourself at least a goalkeeper who plays on 37. This way you can actually have a bit more flexibility moving out of maybe let's say a triple Bournemouth and a triple City, right? Without causing the same issues that owning 6 of the outfield players would have. Because if you own, let's say, someone like Kepa, but you actually have a goalkeeper who plays on 37, you therefore don't need to waste the transfer moving out of, let's say, a Bournemouth player or a City player on 37. Also, Bournemouth actually played Leicester on 38, so that's a huge game. But I'm so not used to seeing the dark green fixture difficulty thing. I know it's a cropped, but yeah, Leicester at home is there for people to see. I'm actually curious, where are people at in terms of captaincy? I myself, I think I feel I don't even just show my bench this week, do I? So I think we're in a happy position there. Where are people at in terms of captaincy? What are your free hit differentials? Maybe if you just drop some of them in chat, that'd be quite helpful. And yeah, if you could like the stream, that would be really helpful too. Subscribe as well if you're here. If you can't trust a fourth mid, is 4-3-3 viable? I think so. I guess there's a couple defenders that I'd say that I can't trust either. Like maybe Sessegnon and Trent are within that category. I think, you know, it takes for some people to actually consider that a little bit too. Should I wildcard this week? I personally prefer wildcard 35 because you're not going to know the FA Cup outcomes up until after this week. So I would actually wait until, you know, a little bit later before I did that. I would wildcard on 35. It does, of course, depend on how bad your team is on gaming 34, right? Because if you actually are missing like what 6-7 people for this week, then actually you're just going to have a problem in general. So you'll need to kind of manage that too. Isak captain. Isak captain's, you know, he seems like the logical captain, but then also his minutes recently have been a little bit strange. So I think a lot of people have kind of tilted back to the Salah captaincy. Like I myself have done so. OP talent, FH34, start Mbeumo or Kluivert. Thoughts on Jota? I'd probably just go Kluivert. I think a lot of people have moved their transfers to Mbeumo. I think it's a worse fixture for him. I think if you think Kluivert's minutes are actually going to be really, really good, which they really should be, as a penalty taker, as the person with a home game, I think I'd probably go for him. Cunha or Welbeck, one over the other. I think I don't have a bench, by the way. This is not a free hit. I'd probably go Welbeck in my own position, but I think if you want to go with a safer draft, I'd just go with Cunha. Cunha cap. Makes sense. Chris Wood, captain. It's such a short turnaround though with the FA Cup. I just feel like Wood's minutes might not be amazing. Trying to boss it with an assist and clean sheet. Could be. Any must-have players for a free hit this week? I would say Nuri feels like a bit of a must-have on defense. I think Isak, Palmer, Salah, and I think the rest of it's actually quite situational. But yeah. Do you think Liverpool's form will drop once they have the title wrapped up? It's a weird one, right? Because Salah actually has a huge point to prove in terms of, I think he wants to break this individual record, right? As in, sort of, continue to expand on the goal involvements. He still needs to be chasing the all-time assist record. So I think, in the case of Salah, I think no. In terms of some of the other players, maybe a little bit more rotation than usual, but a lot of the players that Liverpool have, they're not selling players outside of Darwin, right? And Darwin's already not getting minutes. So, we're really talking about the likes of Luis Diaz. Like, is he going to get minutes? And I think he will. I don't think there's going to be too much rotation for Liverpool, to be fair. But you might see, I don't know, 1-2 academy players maybe coming. I think they have like a 17, 18-year-old that's actually really highly rated. I can't remember his name right now, but, maybe he'll get some minutes. Yeah, I've had Castagna as well within my team, previous to my wild card. So yeah, it's probably a position that you do need to sort out. And it's a bit unfortunate. Like, I mean, sure, maybe there's a small percentage chance that he starts. I didn't actually watch the Chelsea match, I have to say, live. So I don't know exactly how bad, let's say, Teddy's performance is. I did notice that Teddy was subbed for Castagna, but I think that probably was mostly because Teddy came back from injury and probably wasn't ready to play the full 90 minutes, as opposed to Castagna played better, or would have been better going forwards. Would I start Sessegnon or Livramento? I probably still would like Livramento. How risky is doubling up on Newcastle defense versus Murphy ownership? I don't think it's that risky. Because I also think a lot of people who actually own Murphy are free hitting out of Murphy, right? Is that a fair assessment? I feel like more people, are going for Barnes than Murphy. I've captained Isak. Should I expect good results? I mean, absolutely. But both Salah and Isak captainers should be expecting good results. That's kind of, I guess, the pro of this week when you have two amazingly lopsided fixtures. You also have Bruno. You think you should keep him? I think you could probably keep him for this week, right? And then probably sell him after. Because I feel like there could be even harsher rotation on 35, but maybe not so on this one because he's already gotten his quote-unquote rest last week. I think Bruno starts and probably maybe comes off early, to be honest, in this type of match versus Bournemouth. Thanks, Fran, and then Boomer advice him now in a conundrum. Do I swap him for Bowen, Kluivert, or Rogers? So that's on a wild card, right? I'd probably not have Rogers on a wild card. Maybe actually I wouldn't have Bowen either, right? Rogers, I guess you're keeping him for prospectively a chance at a double. And obviously it's a price point thing, right? So I'd probably just get rid of Bowen. Another thing about Bowen, I mean, is we've just lost the Southampton a home game, right? Whereas with Mbeumo, his games actually kind of get better slightly compared to Bowen's. Any must-have players from the free hit? I think I've answered that question. Sorry. So, Otto Ferdinand, thank you so much for being a member for 12 months. Sent a message. Yeah, definitely. I'll have a look at Discord right now. Human97, would I change something about my free hit video? Honestly, looking back at it, I'd probably only add Luis Diaz to the draft. I might consider going Cucurella as well, over Sessegnon. And that's it, I think. I'd probably just have Luis Diaz coming in front of, let's say, a Kluivert or Mbeumo, and that's it. I'd go Raul over Welbeck, I think, at this moment in time. Sorry, I'm just quickly having some other Discord chat. So I'm looking at your team, Darwin or Otto. I think if you have a really big gap in the ML, it kind of goes back to the point that I was kind of making, which is you probably want to go for slightly more stacks. Like if you know that Cunha is extremely high owned, maybe change him with Raul. If you know that, well, I mean, you can keep Barnes. I think he's still a really good pick. I think Palmer is actually a good sort of differential pick as well on the free hit. I'd probably go him over Kluivert. And then, yeah, in defense, as I said, maybe consider like a double up or a triple up. That would actually kind of help you. And you know, it's for me, it's not crazy to drop Aitnuri on the free hit if you really are chasing in a sort of direction. You know, there's not a huge drop off between Kukureya and Aitnuri to me. So I think by stacking up on, let's say, Chelsea double defense, like that could help out really well. You could as well simply just drop Sessegnon there and then just go for Raul in the front line, and I think that would give you quite a differentiated draft, I would say, if you're happy to make those changes. But you know, if you were to ask me to sort of review that free hit and ask if it's good or not, like it's a great free hit regardless. It's just I assume people like Aitnuri, you know, closely concentrated with other people's ownership. Same with Cunha as well. Nick Giordano, is Jose Sa, thank you so much for the super chat, by the way, is Jose Sa guaranteed to start? I don't think so, but it seems like he's been in training. What I did note though was that from some of from a sort of Wolves like in the know type kind of fan, was that it still seems a bit unlikely that Sa was going to start for this match. So I feel like there's enough doubt there if I can put that in front of you, but he is a goalkeeper at the end of the day. I feel like the threshold in terms of being able to play after injuries is a little bit lower. I just think it's not guaranteed for sure. Sorry for asking again, do you think Elanga is a good chance to start and get? I don't think so, because I mean, this is like, first of all, you see a lot of rotation anyways with the wingers with the Nottingham Forest, and then actually a lot of these players are going to play significant minutes within the match versus Man City. So I actually do think Elanga's minutes might not be great within the free hit. I think it's likely that he starts, but I think he's not a good pick. I mean, I've got to be honest, like looking at a lot of free hit drafts, I think they're very, very similar. So, you know, it really is a question to people who of what they want to do to kind of differentiate their drafts. I'm not saying just pick all the low EO type players, but it's a question of, you know, whether you want to grab that risk or, I mean, at the end of the day, not everyone is free hitting on 34, right? So if you think you have objectively the best team available, you're probably still going to beat 30-40% of players, including myself, because it's not like everyone is free hitting. But yeah, it seems like the free hit template is very much set in stone. Haven't seen many with two more attackers for free hit. That's the thing, right? So I think like double Chelsea defense is a differential. Double Newcastle defense is a differential. Double Bournemouth attack is a differential from what I can see within the free hit drafts. I'm not saying that I would have gone for it, like all of these things, but I definitely would have probably been quite tempted with double Chelsea defense, because I think, why not? I'm not sure if I would have been on double Newcastle defense, if I'm being completely honest. I think I would have gone for Barnes still. But yeah, little things like that I think are quite relevant. On top of that, I mean, I'm clearly not going for a free at 34, so that's why I've gone for some of these Bournemouth players, you know, just for the medium to long-term aspect, and same with Mbumo. Isak captaincy is definitely going to be over 100%. I mean, didn't Salah technically crush it versus the last Tottenham game as well? Or am I wrong? Pope and Munetsi or Sanchez and Barnes? I'd probably still go Sanchez and Barnes. Mbumo or Kluivert? I'd probably just go Kluivert. I wouldn't bench Raul. How confident am I that Raul starts? I'd probably, or that Cunha starts, probably 90%. Craig, hope you're doing well. Sorry if you've answered already, if someone has already asked. However, can you explain the upside of Palmer over Iwobi? Well, I think it's just looking at something as simple as market odds, right? And just still seeing that Palmer is like absolutely high up there. And that I think a lot of people are just going to look at Palmer's form, which has been absolutely horrendous, and just think, I'm not going to go for him on the free hit. And he's still, you know, a penalty taker. He's still got a lot of pros going his way despite playing rather poorly recently. So that's kind of the perspective that I would take on Palmer over Iwobi. But if you want to go Iwobi, be my guest. Because he's still going to play 90 minutes probably versus the Southampton team, and it is the Southampton team, right? So good context. But yeah, when I had a look at some of the odds, I don't think Iwobi was too high up in terms of goal scoring odds. Protagonist, yeah, I mean, absolutely, we could look at the free hit. I mean, as I said, the only thing that I'd really do is probably consider just Raul to Welbeck. I don't think there's anything too much that I would change with your draft protagonist. Like the goalkeeper, maybe you could just double back a defense that you like. There's nothing wrong with that. Like nothing stopping you, I guess, from going for a prospective Wolves goalkeeper. If you'd like to do that. I think the thing that I don't love about Trent, if I can be honest, is what scares me about Trent is, small percentage chance, I suppose, that Bradley starts, but then also just if Trent is to come off earlier in the game, I think it just worsens him as a pick, right? Because part of the appeal of Trent is that he does play a lot of matches, and if he doesn't come off early, he's always got chances of attacking return. So you're kind of taking that a little bit away from him. And, he could, get the full house basically and leave the game like Sessegnon did versus Chelsea, like get an assist, get triple bonus, get clean sheets, and then somehow Liverpool lose their goal, and that could happen. But I think for attackers, that tends to be a little bit worse for sort of driving outcomes. And I think some of the other defenders this week just are going to play more minutes, and I think it's probably a pro, right, given that their opponents are quite weak. Evan Nilsson, Welbeck's, or Strand Lars. I'd probably actually go Welbeck if I was on our free hit. Darwin. I've got to be honest, like if we were to look at, let's say, goal scoring odds for a lot of strikers, you'd see a lot of them are close, outside of Raul and outside of Isak, a lot of them are close, plus, Cunha is a little bit more creative than, let's say, a Welbeck. So he's in theory the best third pick. But I also think his ownership is so high, you can kind of justify going against him. If I think about in the midfield, I guess if you don't go for a Newcastle defender or Luis Diaz, like two of them, then you're opening yourself up to a Kluivert and a Mbeumo, so many other players that could actually fit into different draft structures. So I think that's kind of a big differentiation as well within the drafts. But for the most part, the core template seems very, very set in stone. And then defense, I think, is where you can actually make the most amount of changes right now and kind of hope for significant outcomes that will be beneficial for your team. And it just depends on whether you want to risk it or not. Because the highly popular picks are Sessegnon, Reinhard Nuri, maybe Pope even, and then another defender like, I don't know, a Kukurea, for example, or a Trent. So I reckon Sessegnon will get 60 minutes. I actually do think he will. 24 points behind top. Do you think I need to gamble or play the long game with a wild card and bench boost? Oh, if you've got a wild card, I mean, you don't need to gamble now. Take it easy. Because the wild card's already going to, like, the wild card can easily drive 24 points already, I think, like starting from next week. Predictions for El Clasico final. Look, honestly, I hope we win, but I think we're most likely going to lose. Yeah. I don't know, maybe let's say 3-1 to them. And then secretly, I hope we actually smash them. But that would be wishful thinking, I think, just given the level of performance over the last few months. Is it a bad idea to triple defense on Fulham chasing 25 points in mid-league? I don't think so. But I think there's probably better clean sheet odds on offer from, let's say, a Wolves or a Chelsea. So maybe if you want to triple up on the defense, like, you could consider them, or, even Newcastle. Tempted with Luis Diaz captain, what do you think? I don't love it. I just think basically once you captain someone that's not Salah or Isak, you're going against both players, and both of them are so highly likely to do well. You're not even sort of coin flipping that aspect of captaincy. You're coin flipping that they both do poorly almost, and that your player does well, which I think it's almost too much to ask for this week when no one really runs them close, in my opinion. If you're 14 points behind in the mid league and he's already used a free hit, go for the safer picks easily, because you could just bag those 14 points with the safer picks easily. Did I bring in Aitnuri for Saliba? Yes, I did. Do you think you can catch Sam, or has that ship sailed? Hope you're doing well, by the way, Louis. I think I probably can, but the free hit would have to flop on his part this week, which is possible, right? Like, or if Bournemouth do really well, I don't know, Nico Williams or Mbuma do really well, I might be Esteban as well. Like, I actually probably have a lot of differentiated players for people on the free hit if I think about it. Like Pope, like double Newcastle defense is going to be a differential versus free hit. Esteban, Nico will be, Clivert, Evanilson will definitely be, and then Mbuma will definitely be. So on that basis, like there's a lot of potential for swings that can go positively my way, but the big difference is people who have free hitted on 34 will have a different team. Like they'll have a little bit more of an Arsenal stacked team, a little bit more City stacked, less Bournemouth stacked, and I'll need to sort of assess, what happens going forwards, because I'll have Bournemouth versus Arsenal when they rotate for PSG, and that's for me a big pro. And then a lot of players will maybe have to deal with rotation. Like City players could be rotating a little bit after the FA Cup potentially. Arsenal will continue to rotate, so maybe being like highly invested in Arsenal isn't great. So it's little things like that. And then also the idea, I guess, that I've kept Mbeumo, I suppose, but I think a lot of people will bring in Mbeumo on 35. And so yeah, it'll be little things like that. And then I guess my Crystal Palace players too, like Eze and Pope. I think some people might actually end up selling them over the next few weeks, and I'll probably keep them until 36. So we'll see. You don't have Sessignon. I think it's fine to not have Sessignon. You already have Welbeck. Did you mean Raul's? I do think Raul's a better pick. And who would I swap Trent with? I think there's a lot of options. Like I think Kukurea makes a lot of sense, but keeping Trent is fine as well. Any leaks? I don't think there's leaks, unfortunately, today. I mean, the odds generally have kept moving this week, right? And I think a lot of it is at this stage of the season, there's probably a lot of kind of momentum shifts in terms of odds, in terms of how much we fluctuate on certain things. Let me just have a look though on some of the latest odds shared by Rob T. Yeah, he's done his final updates. Let me see what can I glean from it. So it seems like the Brighton sort of goal scoring line has actually dropped off a little bit. Fulham clean sheets have sort of been pushed up a bit. Chelsea clean sheets pushed up a bit. Liverpool clean sheet pushed up a bit. Newcastle odds overwhelmingly pushed up on both attack and defense. So that's all I can really say on that. So it seems like, yeah, I think double Chelsea defense actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, the odds seem to sort of back that general direction. Double Fulham defense could make sense. I'm not sure if I love it though. As I said, I'd prefer double Chelsea. Newcastle wise, that probably begs for a triple attacking stack, but like I'm not sure if you can really guarantee you'll get the right players. And conversely, of course, really good clean sheet odds too. So can definitely go both ways with that. Leno or Sanchez? I'd probably go Sanchez. Fran team will kick the free hit butt. Look, I really do hope so. My aim to finish the season, honestly, unfortunately, with how poorly the season's gone, it's just going to be top 100k. If I can get there. Is Barnes definitely going to start? I don't think so, but I mean, I feel like it's a very high odd because he's just played so well recently. It's probably their most informed player. Jacob Murphy or Barnes? I'd go Barnes just due to just pure goal threat and things like that. As a Brighton fan, our defense has been awful and wouldn't be surprised if we concede. Yeah, I think your defense has been pretty awful all season long. Although I have to say I was quite amazed at the level of the defense versus Leicester. So that really kind of hurt. But then there's the weird thing with Brighton, I feel like, is there's always some games where you just suddenly get shocked by like their performances. Although a lot of it has come from when the team's like fully back, right? So the amount of injuries that there is in defense right now doesn't bode well for my team. But I just think about, the immediate bounce back from that 7-0 Brighton defeat, like suddenly just winning what 4 or 5 games straight. There was what couple of clean sheets in there as well. So hoping for good things. And Esteban is still a bit of an attacker, so hopefully that kind of bodes well for myself. My opinion on Sessegnon versus Trent for it. Yeah, I think both of them likely to start. Both of them likely to come off a little bit earlier. Maybe in Sessegnon's case, he could come off a little bit later, but I actually think I like Sessegnon more on the free hit. Because I think he's actually in that sort of right wing position, actually more attacking than Trent. And then the clean sheet odds are the same. Murphy or Barnes? I'd personally go Barnes. Do I have any chips left? Not right now. The rank is still good, but yeah, I'm obviously like after finishing top 10k last 2 seasons, it does feel like a bit of a fall from grace. And I have to be honest, like I didn't really expect myself to be in this sort of position, but I feel like I've had a pretty unfortunate year. Although some people might disagree, right? Because some people just don't believe that there's luck in this game. So yeah, we'll have to just hope that next season works out a lot better. Is Anthony Gordon worth the punt? I personally don't think so. I actually think it's quite likely that Barnes and Murphy would still start. Maybe I'm wrong to say that, but I think it makes sense. No Cunha. This isn't a free hit, by the way. FPL machine. João Pedro was my downfall. I mean, more recently, yeah. We still got a brace from him, but I mean, he's given me a -4 now. I wouldn't say he's been my downfall, though. It's just, I think, like an accumulation of like many different decisions. Like, I personally think the Salah captaincies were just swings, as opposed to sort of buying into a bad outcome, if that makes sense. And like some of the recent Salah sort of performances, despite having similar sort of expected goals all season long, is a good indication of like how his performances can be up and down, right? But yeah, I mean, I'll probably do a season review, discuss that a little bit. I think from a structural point of view and like a chip strategy standpoint, I think ever since I pursued the assistant manager chip, that kind of ruined my team. Because I sold Bruno basically before he went on that run of games where he scored like 60 points in a row. And a couple other players. I've enjoyed a lot of João Pedro points, right? So I don't think he's necessarily like a troll. But yeah, he's kind of been trolling this season. And I don't look at players like that, right? It's like I'm not emotionally invested into them. I get annoyed at them, but I'll still buy them if they've trolled me. And I'll still buy people, or I still, will ignore to buy people who've done really well for me if I feel it's the right call. Salah says on free hit, and thank you so much for the super chat, Salah. On free hit, Iwobi / Evan Nilsson or Kluivert / Jimenez. I would definitely go Jimenez, and I'd definitely go Evan Nilsson. But I mean, sorry, like that's such, sorry. I'd definitely go Kluivert, Jimenez. I must hate Trossard. Yeah, I absolutely hate Trossard. I mean, but the thing is, like, I think like Trossard performing well recently is a good justification for why I bought Trossard many weeks ago. For the most part, Saka hasn't been playing football when Trossard has actually been scoring all these goals, and it just shows that Trossard was actually a very reasonable pick. But like when not under my ownership, he's been absolutely banging it in, and when I owned him, he just did nothing. So yeah, I think it, like when I looked back then, like Trossard was always high in terms of market odds for goal scoring, and it really makes sense because Trossard's actually always been historically a very good player attacking wise, as long as his minutes are good. So yeah, those kind of swings I think this season have been pretty tough to take on. I just haven't manufactured points really. That was like Sar. Yeah, I think Sar very similar as well. So, same with Eze to an extent, right? Like for example, how annoying was it on the free hit to have Eze score? And break my clean. I can just say you're not lucky enough. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I owned Bruno for many weeks before that, right? And he did nothing. And then he, went on miraculous hauls, even scoring in games like Arsenal. And then I owned Trossard versus really good teams. Even captained him, I think, quite justifiably versus West Ham at home when Salah actually had a Man City away game, and Salah basically had 2 touches that match, and it was 1 goal, 1 assist. And Trossard had Miles Lewis get a red card, and Arsenal weren't playing particularly well at that point. So, yeah. Harry Mass, great differential this week, plays high up and was putting great balls in the box. Yes, but he does play for Man United, and he is playing away from home. So what are we talking about here? I feel like that's I feel like you're asking for too much almost if you go with Harry Mass. Is there a reason to bench Bruno for a hit? I don't think so. No, I think I'd still play Bruno at this point in time. Good to see her on a green globe. Do you think Shar starts this game week? Maybe I could look into some Newcastle journalists on that, but I think that it still seemed like quite unlikely. I'd probably say Shar still plays. Should I start Welbeck or Raul? I personally prefer Raul. Mo. Would you consider anyone instead of Diaz for your free hit? I think Diaz is a bit of a lock, right? I think Liverpool goal scoring odds are too high. His minutes are too good as well, so I'd take that. Someone's going Isak captain today, basically always Salah captain. Fair enough, go for it. Hey, Fran swapped Leno, Trippier, Clivert for Pope, Sessignon, Diaz. I think that's fine. Totally fine with those moves. Should I start Welbeck, Raul Jimenez, or Wood? Yeah, just roll. Tab says, should I take a -4 to outfield 11 instead of 10? I mean, I've done that. If that helps, give you an answer. I think as long as you're bringing in a player that has effectively more than 4 points of expected value this week, then it's justifiable. And of course, if that player doesn't kind of hamstring your team in the future, I would pick someone who, could produce. Like some of the options I was considering with for my, my hits would be Semenyo, right? Because he's going to play up until the rest of the season, and he's probably still going to be better than Eze. I went for Nuri out in this instance, but I think that's because going for Evan Nilsson is so much stronger than, let's say, carrying the carcass of JP going forward. So there's some value to keeping Evan Nilsson going forwards, and he's got a really good match this week too. So that's kind of, by going for the Nuri move, it's more so about structuring my attack correctly. So I think as long as your hit structures your team for really all the fixtures after this, then I'm happy with you to take a -4. Manager, I'm just gonna put you in timeout. Everyone can ask the question slowly. Barnes or Murphy? I personally would pick Barnes. Problem is, it's a goalkeeper. Oh, that's an interesting question. If it's a goalkeeper, I actually probably wouldn't go for a goalkeeper. I think the only goalkeeper I might go for would be someone like Pope. Like if you don't have triple Newcastle somehow, but I really doubt that you do. So I think you have triple Newcastle, and I probably think you won't. Excuse me. Go for Pope. Trying to think about other goalkeepers that could be interesting. Honestly, I don't think so. Like it's what Leno, Sanchez. Kepa's the only one, maybe Kepa. Just because Kepa could double, but you'd need to have another goalkeeper on 37 who's guaranteed to play. So maybe you can only answer that question yourself. And I think Allison, yeah, I'm not that interested in Allison, to be fair, up until the end of the season. So for a goalkeeper, I probably would pass. Who would I bring instead of Bruno this week if he wasn't available? Just Mbumo. Isak, Murphy, Livermore is perfectly fine. Would I captain Murphy or Sobo? No, I definitely wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I'm not into Sobo whatsoever. Salah, thank you so much for being a member for 7 months. Appreciate that a lot. Raul or Cunha? I probably think Raul is the one. I appreciate not getting the Palmer love. I just think it's hard to reconcile because at the end of the day, he's got so many intangibles that are good, and the market odds are still so high on him, despite his sort of absolutely shocking form. So yeah. But if you wanted to skirt away from Palmer, I think that's totally fine. FPLs, thank you. Who would I bring instead of Mbuma this week if he wasn't available? I'm so confused though. Why you're just constantly asking like different midfielders? Murphy, Gordon, or Barnes? I'd go Barnes. On wildcard, if not captaining Salah, should I get Diaz and Jota slash? Oof. Chasing. I feel like you should still go Salah because I just think there's just not enough budget in the game. And I think even with chasing, you can let the rest of your wild card dictate the chase, as opposed to ignore Salah and I guess risk so much more. So I'd go Salah personally. Triple captain Isak I think is strong this week. I'd personally prefer putting on Salah, but we might still have a small chance of a double in 36. But if you have a chip then to use, then of course triple captain now. Salah says, should I go with Robinson or Sessegnon? I would still risk Sessegnon personally. You know, I'm not that interested in Robinson as a pick and as a player. So, you know, if you don't go for Sessegnon, I'd rather just go for another defender entirely. Choose one, Trent, Sessegnon, Kukurea. I would actually probably go Kukurea at this point in time. Should I just take a hit to have a full 11? Well, I mean, interesting question was raised by someone else in the chat where he had a goalkeeper that was not playing this week. In that case, I think I wouldn't take a hit. If you have an outfield player that's not a goalkeeper, I would definitely take a hit. As long as you can make sure that that transfer is a bit of a robust move for yourself. Is Trent set to start? I think he's likely to start, but I wouldn't say it's guaranteed. Your free hit has 5 million in the bank. Yeah, but it's a free hit, right? And another thing to sort of raise is, yeah, like points, like, I mean, cash within an individual game week doesn't correlate to points. If I can just put that out there. If you had money left in the bank, so be it. If you think that's the best team you have. Like some of those Newcastle mids are so cheap. Luis Diaz at this point is quite cheap. He's cheaper than a lot of the other expensive mids in the game. All the forwards outside of Isak this week are cheap. You know, like the cheaper ones are actually better, right? Like Raul for me is better than Wood. Raul is better than Cunha even. If I look at, you know, does Trent need to be within a wild card draft? Sorry, not a wild card draft, but a free hit draft. No, I don't think Trent needs to be there. So yeah, therefore you don't really need to be spending that sort of money. You send your updated squad in Discord. Awesome. I think Welbeck's totally fine as a fun differential. I think that's fine, Darwin. And then protagonist, would I go Leno or Sanchez? I'd probably go Sanchez just purely based on clean sheet odds. And you've gone for that, right? So yeah, I think that final squad is really strong. I don't really have any complaints with it. It's probably the type of squad that I would have rolled out with myself. Yeah, my preference is naturally just double Chelsea defense because their odds are just higher. So I mean, what do we own defenders for? Mostly odds of clean sheets. Start to Evan Nelson and Mbeumo, Trent, Sessegnon. I would still go Evan Nilsson and Sessegnon. Is Salah captaincy locked for me? Yeah, it is. Razor says he's on the free hit. Should I start Mbeumo, Clever, Wood? I probably, if you don't trust Raul, I would probably still go for Wood, actually, in this circumstance. You sent your updated squad on Discord. Did have a look at that. Luis Diaz or Mbeumo? I would go Luis Diaz. And that probably answers both your questions. Card turn, throwback's father. Should I get Bruno Mbeumo or Diaz? Is this kind of like a non-wild card type move? I'd go Mbeumo. Would you at all consider starting Iwobi or Diaz? think there's zero chance that I would ever do that. Anything on who's starting for Newcastle? No, I don't think we have it. I just don't think I've not seen any Newcastle news or leaks. Yeah. Yeah, I can't really see any indication of, someone like Gordon starting. Bowen or Diaz? I'd go Diaz. Wildcard team: Kepa, Trips, Virgil van Dijk, Nuri, Salah, Diaz, Mbumo, Bowen, Strand, Wood, Isak. I don't really like Strand, and I don't really like Bowen. I think there's a distinct lack of Bournemouth, which I wouldn't quite understand why. I think the investment into Everton makes a lot of sense. And I think actually going City on the bench makes sense as well with Guardiola, KDB. Yeah, I just don't really like Strand. I'm not sure if I love Wood either. I think I still prefer picks like Wisa at the end of the day. And I'd rather, take some of the money out of Bowen and go for a Bournemouth midfielder. And that's the only suggestions that I have. Trippier or Trent? On the free hit, I'd rather Trippier, I would say. What's the point of having good players on bench for free hit? Wouldn't it just be smart to use all funds? Well, I mean, I guess there's no reason to actually have maximum funds for this free hit anyways. Going maximum funds on the team isn't an indication of the best team. Like, the likes of Bruno and Mbumo, Bowen are worse off than, I don't know, let's say Lelouch Diaz this week, right? Just on price. I still think that Ryan Edner is one of the best picks, and he's only 5 million. So you don't need to use a full budget, and your bench is just your bench, right? It's just an auto sub thing. I don't think the bench matters. The bench might matter if you go for a goalkeeper who's, not prone to starting, like, I don't know, Sanchez or Sa. But this free hit shouldn't cost beyond your budget. So, yeah. Why no Cunha? I'm not on a free hit. Strand or Cunha? I'd probably still go Cunha. Would it be dumb to risk benching Aït-Nouri over Sessegnon? I don't think so, because I think you're kind of acknowledging that you're going against that sort of Wolves ownership. No, it's not a misunderstanding of the rules, to be fair. I think it's just that people think that the objectively best free hit, doesn't require like maximum cash this week. Because, teams like Liverpool, teams like City aren't playing, teams like Arsenal aren't playing. These are the most expensive players in the game contained within those teams. Are you silly going JSL over Cunha? No, you're not. You're not. I don't think you are. I think JSL is like a pretty responsible pick. Do I still prefer Raul and Welbeck? Yes, but Sean Larson's not a bad pick. Better question, why Evan Nilsson instead of Cunha? Well, first of all, I wouldn't be able to afford Cunha in this setup, and Evan Nilsson's probably just a better pick up until the end of the season, I would say, on minutes, guarantees, and also chance of a double. Hi, Fran. How about Son? No, I wouldn't touch Son. I mean, he's also still coming back from his injury, right? And they're just going to rotate for Europe. Wouldn't go close. Virgil van Dijk plus Leno or Sessegnon plus Allison? I'd probably go the other one, like Sessegnon plus Allison. Three minutes left. Absolutely. What do you think of Cunha captain? I think, look, I don't mind it if he was a lot closer in terms of odds and all that stuff, but I just think you're basically asking for Salah and Isak to both not do well, right? Because both their ownerships are going to be above 100%. When should you activate triple captain? I mean, probably this week or 36. If it's the only chip that you have left. Kepa or Pope? I'd go Pope. Let's see if we have any last minute leaks or anything that we can find. I don't think so. It doesn't seem like. Char Livermento? I'd probably go Livermento. 3-5-2. Nah, I prefer 3-4-3 on a week like this. Jose Sar Sanchez? I'd probably go Sanchez. Leno and Trippier or Pope and Trent? I'd probably go Leno and Trippier. Who's on my bench? No one. I'm not on a free hit. Like and subscribe, chat. Please do. And thank you guys so much for joining the stream and tagging along. Apologies for not doing streams recently, but it's good to be back and hope you guys are well. And hopefully I'll be a little bit more active. It's just, yeah, been super busy, unfortunately, coming back from holiday and then being thrown straight into some pretty busy work hours. So hope you guys are doing well. And yeah, lock in your moves, guys. You only have 30 seconds left. Alrighty, good luck to all you guys as well and whatever you're driving for and striving for. Last minute Trent over Sesse, fair enough. All right, I think that's gonna be it for me in terms of the stream. Probably just gonna go meet a friend today, relax a little bit. But I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Triple captains all this week? Nah, I'd probably wait for 36 and go for something else. Unless you have a chip, then go. But yeah, thanks guys once again. Really appreciate you guys joining around. And yeah, hopefully back with consistent live streams up until the end of the season. Take care. Goodbye.